think I may have just found one of the most hidden secrets behind billionaire wealth. There's a commonality that I've never realized between some of the world's most artistic, most innovative, and most wealthy people on earth. And believe it or not, that thing is autism. Now, I've spent a huge period of my life studying the ultra wealthy class, but when I found out that my ultra brilliant son was also high functioning autistic, well, I wanted to show him that there are autistic people in this world that do amazing things too. So I started studying successful autistic people, and I found something extremely interesting. The same people that I was studying in the ultra wealthy class were the exact same people that I uncovered during my research on super successful autistic people. Satoshi Tajiri, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, even Henry Ford. All of these people are billionaires. And also, all of them were either diagnosed with autism or are suspected by experts to probably be on the spectrum. Even people like Beethoven, Vincent van Gogh, Eminem, Einstein, even Nikola Tesla. Maybe not all billionaires, but people who created a legacy and became legendary within their respective fields. Autism spectrum disorder at its core is a developmental condition that impacts how a person perceives and interacts with the world around them. And it's considered a spectrum because it presents itself differently within each person that has it. Many people with autism struggle with social interaction or communication, while others might have intense interest or unique ways of processing information, or they might have a mix of all of them. It really just depends on the person. A few decades ago, ASD was just considered autism, and at that point it really only described the people who were most affected by the condition. But then in 2013, it medically changed to a spectrum, which made many people realize that maybe they had some qualities of ASD that wouldn't have fit previously under the terms of autism. And as a result, there are many wealthy people who have now come forward to publicize their diagnosis. And then others who have specific undiagnosed quirks that experts say are likely because they're on the autism spectrum. Elon Musk announced that he has Asperger's, which is now part of the autism spectrum, while he was hosting Saturday Night Live back in 2021. Satoshi Tajiri, who created Pokemon, well, he's always been open about being on the autism spectrum. In fact, his intense childhood interest in collecting insects is what led to him coming up with the concept of gotta catch 'em all, which has now captivated millions and millions of children and adults around the world. But that's not surprising, and in this video, you'll find out exactly why. So what is it about autism or being on the spectrum that can contribute to this extraordinary level of success? Now, I'm no medical expert, but as a business expert and the father of an autistic child, I think that I have a little bit of an idea. One of the most common traits of people on the spectrum is obsessive thinking, which is often viewed negatively. Many autistic people will find this one thing that really interests them, and then that one thing becomes almost their sole focus. If they're really interested in dinosaurs, then it doesn't matter if you're bringing up cars or you're bringing up technology or you're trying to ask them about school, because their conversation is always going to somehow revert back to dinosaurs. It's a level of focus and concentration that neurotypical people just can't usually match. Now, in a social context, it makes life a lot harder. But when it comes to building a business or developing some groundbreaking innovation, the ability to focus intensely on one single thing can really be a driver of success. Now, whether you hate him or you love him, you really can't deny Elon Musk's passion for things like electric vehicles and space travel. He's not one of those CEOs that spends all of his time at high roller parties while his VPs run the entire company. He's known for working these incredibly long hours and even sleeping on the floor of the factory in order to move a project forward. And he can sit on the Joe Rogan show and talk about these topics for hours on end without skipping a breath. Now, this level of focus would almost definitely cause burnout for the average neurotypical person. However, for some individuals on the autism spectrum, this level of engagement is energizing rather than draining. It's their happy place, and they can literally spend all day there. In business, this obsessive thinking can often lead to passion-driven innovation. Now, you might disagree, but I don't think that people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are actually in it for the money. The money is really just a symptom of the passion that they have for the problem that they're trying to solve. Because I don't think that I've ever even heard Elon Musk talking about his money. Now, the media is obsessed with it, but when I see him in interviews, he's always talking about the problems in the transportation industry or commercializing space travel. He's completely obsessed with those things, and that obsession allows him to outperform his competitors. In addition to being these obsessive thinkers, many individuals on the autism spectrum also have what's called an enhanced local processing ability. In the simplest of terms, this just means that they're really great at focusing on the smallest details that most of us are going to overlook. An example of this is Stephen Wiltshire, who is an autistic artist from London who flew over New York for 20 minutes in a helicopter. And then after that flight, he drew the city's 305 square miles on a 19-foot canvas with the most intricate details, even down to the number of windows that were on each of the buildings. Well, in business, this attention to detail can be a humongous asset. It can help in spotting patterns and inconsistencies that most neurotypical people miss. For example, Bill Gates' attention to detail is always mentioned as his strongest quality during his time at Microsoft. He was known for his ability to spot errors in code at a glance, which was extremely crucial in the earliest days of personal computing. Steve Jobs, who experts have speculated may have been on the spectrum, he was globally known for his obsession with even the most minute details of Apple's products. From the iPod to the Mac to the iPhone, he really wanted to create perfection. This level of perfectionism can drive companies to create truly exceptional products that stand out in the market. There's another thing that's common among many autistic people that greatly differs from neurotypical people. They have what's called a heightened sensory perception. This means that they experience the world more intensely through their senses. My son, for instance, and especially when he was younger, he would cover his ears when there was a lot of noise going on. Things like flashing strobe lights will give him sensory overload. And it's really not uncommon at all for people with ASD to be more sensitive to light or sounds or taste or touch, for instance. And the way that these senses translate into their thoughts and experiences, well, that can influence how they see the world that's around them. And maybe this just goes back to them being more detail oriented, or maybe their heightened senses is what automatically makes them more detail oriented. I don't know, but I do know that these heightened senses can make them more aware of things that other people don't see. Let's take Temple Grandin, for instance. She's a world-renowned animal behavior specialist, an autism advocate, and a professor. She's known for being one of the first scientists to report that animals are very sensitive to visual distractions in handling facilities. For instance, things like shadows or chains dangling from the ceiling. And nobody had ever even thought of that before. Farmers and other people who handle livestock, they've seen those same shadows and heard those same chains dangling for so many years that they don't even notice them anymore, let alone do they think about how it impacts the animal. But as an autistic person with a heightened sensory perception, those are things that Temple realized would disrupt the animals the same way that it would disrupt her as an autistic person. Tim Burton is another genius that is suspected to be on the spectrum. And he created these classic stories like The Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice. He used his heightened senses to create these visual scenes that captivated audiences, bringing them into a world that was completely foreign to them. Heightened senses can lead to sensory overload for some autistic people, but it can also inspire a level of creativity that neurotypical people almost find it impossible to tap into. It's a level of awareness of what's going on around us from the perception of our senses, and it can translate into new products or new solutions that really change how we think or how we do things or how we see the world. Let's be real, there's no executive at GM, Chrysler, or Ford that ever would have approved the Cybertruck design. But Elon saw a visual design that nobody else could see, and given the media coverage of the Cybertruck, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other automobile companies start creating designs that are similar to what we see in the Cybertruck today. Whatever it was that Elon saw that inspired the Cybertruck design, well, nobody else saw it for the hundreds and hundreds of years that we've been producing vehicles. And now it's one of the most talked about vehicles on the planet. Now here's the disclaimer to all of this. Now, although I truly believe that every person with ASD has superpowers, the truth is that despite all of the evidence that I presented here, there are some disclaimers that I need to give. Firstly, autism is a spectrum. Not everyone with ASD will have these traits that I discussed, and very few of them will end up being successful entrepreneurs. Autism can present significant challenges for both children and adults, and I don't want to minimize these difficulties by pointing out the handful of people who have made it to the top of their respective industries. The support needs and requirements of people on the spectrum can vary widely. Some may need only minimal support in their daily lives, while some may need full-time assistance. And as a society, it's important important that we provide the support, the encouragement, and the accommodations for all individuals on the spectrum, not just those who may be the next tech billionaire or the next Eminem level rapper. Also, it would be totally unfair for me to say that business success only requires these couple of traits that I discussed. Things like opportunity, education, the support system, and even luck. All of those things play a role in entrepreneurial success for anybody, not just the neurodiverse individuals. Some of the traits associated with autism may provide certain advantages, but they're not a guaranteed recipe for success. I also don't want to perpetuate any negative stereotypes. Not all people with ASD are math geniuses or tech savants. It's important that we recognize, nurture, and value the diverse strengths of every individual that's on the spectrum. However, I hope that this discussion helps us reframe how we think about autism and neurodiversity in general. Instead of seeing these differences as challenges that need to be overcome, maybe we can recognize them for what they are, which are potential strengths that could lead to innovation and world change. Hopefully the discussion will open up how we embrace neurodiversity, because it's never been very easy in society for neurodiverse people. Some of the largest corporations in the world, like Quaker, ran terrible experiments on autistic people. And you can learn more about some of these horrible experiments in this video right here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and keep doing amazing shit.